social determinants of health. This is the public health priorities map for Mecklenburg County from 2012 to 2016. And the same areas of disinvestment are also the same communities that have less than high school graduation rate, higher population, below the poverty, and population below the threshold of poverty and education, also less access to healthcare, less access to grocery stores. And then I have this map over here as recently as 2022, where you see the areas of continued poverty in our county are historical areas of redlining. This is blatant racism and discrimination, and it has impacted how sources of pollution are located in the West End. So this is the same pattern that we see of historical redlining of the West End, the Crescent. If you're from Charlotte, you know the Crescent and the Wedge. So these little blue dots that you see represent facilities that emit toxic releases and emit air pollution. And then these areas shaded in the yellow to red shades are percent of populations that are Black and brown. So as you can see, the same areas where facilities are heavily concentrated are the same areas where Black and brown communities reside in our county. So this is a slide that Ron wanted to include. It just kind of shows a little bit of some of the sources of air pollution in the West End a little bit more up close. So Mary had mentioned this, but the West End is surrounded by I-85, I-77, and C-16. Like I said, sources of particulate matter mostly comes from cars. Cars are actually the biggest contributor to air pollution in Charlotte-Mecklenburg region. And so just having a community that's surrounded by all of these highway systems, that's thousands of diesel trucks that pass through, you know, these collective highway systems every day. And so that just comes with a whole host of exposures. And then another area of concern that we're working with a partnership with this quarry, but the Martin Marietta quarry, just centrally located in the community off of Caps Hill. That brings another host of air quality concerns because you have the diesel trucks that are coming in off the highway, coming to the community, passing through it, all the dust and the rocks just coming off. Dust is another source of air pollution, airborne particles. And then again, like the map I just showed, besides this, there's also just a whole bunch of other industrial facilities that are located in the community. So this is why we decided to start our monitoring program within the West End back in 2015. I brought the monitor, but I left it in my car. I'm sorry, but this is the monitor we use. We also use this monitor, but this is the purple air monitor that I was talking about. It's a small sensor. You hang it up at your house, and you can just keep it there. It collects data, collects particulate matter data, and it tells you your exposure every minute, hour, like it takes it every second pretty much. And so we take this data, download it every month, meet with historic West End community air keepers. That's what we call the people who host our air monitor, and just talk through the exposure, talk through what we can do. We have advocacy trainings. I'll get into this, but we have advocacy trainings, healthy education series with historic West End doctors, and just a lot of educational efforts. And again, I'll get more into that. But so we started doing education within the community in 2015, and then started monitoring in 2017, which is when these were created. So as soon as the purple air monitors were created, we were actually one of their first, we bought the first monitors from customers. So the CEO, we recently met with the CEO of Purple Air, and he said that he remembers building our purple air monitors on his kitchen table. But we also use these up top, which is called the air beam. So the purple air is stationary, it stays at your home, whereas the air beam, you can walk around with it. So sometimes we'll do little programs, we'll walk around the quarry, walk around the highway systems, and just understand hot spots of exposure in different areas. So once we began measuring the levels of PM2.5 particulate matter, which is a pollutant I shared, we started understanding the connections between social determinants of health and the exposure to air pollution. So these are all of our, and I'm sorry, I needed to update this, but we now have 14, recently installed 3 more. But we have 13 monitors within, or excuse me, 14 monitors within the historic West End across 6 historic West End neighborhoods. So this is just some of them. I just wanted to screenshot some of these that we have. But this is what it looks like on the map. So once you put it up, there's a publicly available map. It's a website you go to. Even if you don't have a purple air monitor, you can go to this website. And these little dots that you see represent different monitors that people have at their homes. And then this over here is the air quality index from the EPA. And this is levels of PM. So it measures the levels of PM, and then it'll come out with this color, which basically tells you how good to hazardous. So you see some of these are in the yellow to orange range, and that means the air quality is moderate to unhealthy for sensitive individuals. And again, those sensitive individuals are pregnant women, children, and elderly populations. And so it varies across time to time. When it rains, typically the pollution gets washed away. This was just taken at a random time, but it varies. You have to do a big data haul to kind of understand what's really going on in terms of trends. But this is a good tool if a neighbor wants to go out and garden, for example. Sometimes they'll check their monitor to see if it's safe to go outside. And so yeah, we do advocacy trainings around this, helping people understand their exposure. But this is particularly, our monitoring efforts are particularly important because there are only 4 federal monitors within the county, so monitors that the EPA and our county actually utilize to collect data. And while that's great, particulate matter varies street to street. Your exposure is going to look different even a street down from you. So as you can see, this is a 75, but right down the street, it's a 55. And so that's why having these sensors right at your home have provided us a lot of insight of how particulate matter has varied, even within a small area, because those monitors are, the county-wide monitors that the government actually uses are very widespread. Like I said, we've used a lot of these monitors for advocacy. So this was back in 2018. Like I said, we have 4 air monitors, 4 federal air monitors in Mecklenburg County, and one of those were placed as a result of our monitoring efforts. After we monitored for about a year with community residents, we created the Clearing the Air report of air quality within Charlotte's Historic West End. And this report just kind of went over social determinants of health, air pollution exposure, and a whole bunch of other factors. And we brought this report to, there's Ron, he was supposed to be here today, but Ron and our community science manager at the time went to Mecklenburg County Board of Commissioners, and from that meeting, they were able to advocate for this federal air monitor. And it's a PM 2.5 monitor, so that's now located at Friendship Missionary Baptist Church within the community. And the reason why this was so important is because the monitors that we use, while they're great at telling individual exposure, we can't really do anything regulatory with them except for advocate with things like this. But if they find, exposure limits on this monitor, they have to do something about it because it's a regulatory monitor. So if they're tracking disparities, they have to implement programs and things of that nature to reduce that exposure because of the Clean Air Act. But yeah, so after this, we were like, okay, this is really great. We got this federal EPA air monitor, but it didn't necessarily address the impacts to air pollution. And so while data is great and it can be used for advocacy and understanding, we realized that we wanted to do a little bit more to offset the impacts of air pollution. So that's when we started the Historic West End Green District in 2019. So expanding those monitoring efforts into other areas. So the Historic West End Green District, it's made up of different entities across the Historic West End. And because of that, the community envisions many different things for what they want to see for their community. But we have 3 main goals. The first one is increasing, preserving, and improving tree canopy and green infrastructure along the corridor and in sensitive areas such as along the highway system or the quarry. Um, so that includes installing green roofs, green walls, and other green infrastructure to help mitigate and reduce the impacts of pollution in the community. So we do a few things within this initiative. We have a program, a tree adoption program with Tree Charlotte. So Tree Charlotte every so often does a program with historic West End residents where they give out free trees for adoption in the zip codes around the Crescent. We also have a program with the City of Charlotte's Trees Arboretum program. So it's kind of hard to plant trees on city property. So having that program, we can kind of tell them problem areas and they'll help us to plant trees in these areas. We also recently, these are just some of the outcomes. We recently did a Wells Fargo ATM CleanAIRE garden. I believe Mary was at that ribbon cutting, maybe a few other community members, but that is off of Beatty's Ford Road. Community members had noticed, for one, that's the only Wells Fargo ATM in the community, but that's also, you don't really see other Wells Fargo ATMs across Charlotte look like that site looked. There was always trash there. There was always just something going on there. And so the community wanted to target that site to foster a better corporate responsibility with Wells Fargo and their property. Hoping that we put a beautiful garden there and, it would just maintenance a better relationship. Within this project also, Wells Fargo kind of told on themselves, but that was the only Wells Fargo property in Charlotte that didn't have new ATMs. They had redone all the other ATMs in Charlotte except those two. So we were able to advocate to get those two upgraded ATMs. So it's more than just planting a garden. There was a lot more advocacy that went behind that site. We also just received money from the Charlotte 2022 placemaking grant for the historic West End Green District pillars. So some of y'all might recognize the West End pillars. There's 4 across Beatty's Ford, across the West End. And what we're going to do is just add green infrastructure around it. Like this is a rendition. So and we're going to put plaques in front of it to educate folks about the importance of adding green infrastructure, trees, etc. For air pollution. And so we're working on that project right now. And then of course we're continuing to monitor around high polluting areas. So we have a historic West End Green team that helps to maintenance trees, maintenance these sites, the garden. And we're going to get that up and running in 2023. If anyone's interested in being a part of the green team, please let me know. But they help with the outcomes of this particular goal. Our second goal is electric vehicle expansion and access. So advocating for electric vehicle charging stations and more walking, biking, and clean transit throughout the historic West End, while also providing economic benefits and career opportunities for the community around EV expansion. This was a goal that was important to community members from the get-go. There's been a lot of legislative action around expanding electric vehicles, expanding clean energy, and residents of the historic West End want to ensure that, as a community that has historically been left behind and considered last for benefits, they want to ensure that the community gets ahead of this clean energy that is coming off the market. So you might recognize Miss Maddie Marshall here. Here's Ron Ross. This is actually Governor Cooper and Mayor Lyles. They came out for the installation of the pole vault, which was a collaborative project between Historic West End residents, Duke Energy, and UNC Charlotte. It's the first of its kind electric vehicle charging station that connects to poles. So it connects to existing utility infrastructure. Typically to install an EV, it's a lot of money because it's a lot of construction that you have to do to connect the charging station to a source of power. But with this, it just connects to a light pole. So it really cuts the cost, and Historic West End residents were a part of the process to make sure that the first ever was installed within the community. We also have deployed other ones at the Chase Bank. We have one, and we're doing 2 more across the street, and then we're working on installing one with the Allegra West Coast Library. We're actually meeting with them today to hopefully finish those negotiations. But we also do a lot of education around this, so just educating community that it's more than just electric vehicles. There's electric bikes, there's electric scooters, there's other forms of electric vehicles that we can use. So we had an EVs for Equity event on May 21st, where the city and the county came out with the new electric vehicle buses. We had bikes, we had scooters, we had all sorts of other things just to start that education process of electric vehicles, since this is something that the community really wanted to see. And then our last goal is education and advocacy. So increasing education around air quality and its impacts to propel advocacy solutions. Like I said, a big part of getting the EPA Federal Air Monitor was through advocacy with the community. We are also working the quarry that I mentioned. We're also working on a community benefits agreement with that quarry. So that way, if the quarry expands, they inform the residents or they provide some benefit to the community. So the more they expand, the more trees they have to plant. So just working through a lot of other advocacy goals. We also do clean air advocacy trainings. This was from our one in 2018. We just had one in 2022. As you can see, I think we have about 50 participants, but our most recent one in July, we had around 50, so it was really great. It's increasing every time. And then this last one, we covered zoning, permitting, community and regulatory monitoring efforts, and then community benefits agreements and how we can use those to advocate for solutions in our community. And then we also recently had a healthy education series with historic West End physicians. So historic West End physicians, we did trainings with them to understand the impacts of air pollution in the West End community. And then they came and connected with historic West End residents to talk about those impacts. So not only educating residents, but educating physicians and doctors so that way they can better serve their patients. We actually had Mecklenburg County, the director of Mecklenburg County Public Health Department, lead that training, which was really great. And then, yeah, we have some other city, county, and other organizational partnerships and goals to advance everything that we're doing. And we will be having a health education series and the advocacy training again in 2023. We just need to figure out a good date for that. And then moving forward, this is actually a slide that Ron put together. But yeah, we just wanted to see more improved tree canopy along Beatty's Ford Road, more green buffers along the highway systems. So just from the picture I showed before, as you can see, there's a wall there now, but it's still the community that's backed up right against the highway system. There needs to be more greenery along those areas to help reduce the impacts of all of the cars that are coming consistently. We're looking at providing heat relief at bus shelters. We know how hot it gets in Charlotte. People shouldn't be just standing outside waiting for a bus. There needs to be covers. There needs to be at least trees around there that people can stand under. Exposure to just as bad as exposure to air pollution. So, and also seeking more affordable opportunities for residents to obtain electric vehicles, not just cars, but bikes and scooters and other things that residents can use to get around that emit no pollution. That's the big importance of electric vehicles. They don't emit pollution. And then, of course, like I talked about, more community benefits agreements with polluting entities. So ensuring that if you're polluting in our communities, then you need to be providing some sort of benefit to the community, or you at least need to be more transparent about your emissions. And then meaningfully involving local schools, colleges, and universities. And we also recently started our Clean Construction Partnership. So working with developers who are doing work in the West End and ensuring that they have tier 3 construction. I believe it's tier 3, but I'm sorry if I'm wrong about our health program. That's this program. But making sure that basically the equipment that they're using for construction are the least polluting as possible. So yeah, we just started that partnership with some developers. But yeah, that's a very comprehensive overview of everything that we're focused on and why. The Historic Mustang Green District will be ongoing forever. So if you ever would like to get involved, please just email Ron or I, and yeah, we'd love to have you.
Oh, no, oh, okay, okay. But I do think. Okay, okay. I'm gonna get you started. Thirty seconds to ask. 1 to 2 minutes or less, to answer the question. Okay, we're gonna start with Tommy. Yeah. Where's our timekeeper? Okay. Back there.
Unfortunately, no.
No.
But we do, like I said, we're working on partnerships with the county and the city to ensure that we're seeing better outcomes for our communities. Ron and I and some other Historic West End residents are part of the Environmental Justice Action Plan, which is a new plan that the county is rolling out. So just ensuring that those community voices are heard as the county, starts moving forward with actually addressing some of the issues that residents have been raising since the beginning of time. So,
Thank you. Winston.
Morning. How are you? So I believe that. Yeah, so I believe that you have to push and advocate best as you can while political windows are open. And Pete Buttigieg, Secretary of Transportation, has expressed the desire to remedy some of the ills that came with implementing a federal highway system. A federal highway system in black neighborhoods. I actually live in number 59 on slide 12, McCrory Heights. So I wanted to know if you could discuss some of your advocating or lobbying strategies at the federal level to try to get those incentives to, again, just remedy some of those bills that we have.
as far as transportation goes,
Well, I mean, just.
Yeah. Yeah, so like I said, we have a policy program. We're actually heavily involved with the carbon plan in North Carolina. So that was rolled out by Duke Energy, and they basically did it overnight and didn't tell anybody. There was no environmental justice implications, and it actually was shown that low income to moderate income ratepayers were going to pay a lot more for energy. So they tried to, like they always do, they tried to put it under the guise of this is something good while continuing to put those most at risk. So we have a very high stake in it. We actually have a lawyer that's working on behalf of us and communities. We were able to get the first Native American community at the Capitol to advocate, like on their side, things for the carbon plan. So we're interveners. But we also, so we work with Southern Environmental Law Center, and they're lawyers on our behalf. And so if we see, you know, with our monitoring, for example, more high levels of pollution, we've actually like sued and gotten places shut down. So we kind of just do it as the opportunity arises, and if, you know, it makes sense for our legal team. we listen to community first and we use our data to help and advocate and fight back against industries. But we also are stakeholders in the Advanced Clean Trucks Rule Act, which aims to reduce exposures of trucks and diesel trucks and things that go along our highway. So there's multiple policy initiatives that we're working on to address this at a larger scale. Everything that we do is environmental justice is at our core. So we're doing this work all across the state. Good morning.
Microphone check. Okay, I was late. Excuse me if, I missed it. The thing is, so that being said, the people that they're already asleep. Have been doing. Now, see if I can clean up the air. What about? What is done to where the newer residents are being pushed out to, probably the same. What is done to make sure that the residents that were are being compensated for getting clean air?
Absolutely.
Probably doesn't.
Yeah. So, like I said, what we're doing with the Environmental Justice Action Plan, that's very new. And I would say that's our most recent opportunity to make sure that there is representatives that have been living in the West End, their whole lives, that their voices are within that plan. And I will say, in terms of new faces, we do have a good relationship with Johnson C. Smith University. So making sure that students are also being involved in this effort, not students that are actually impacted by these issues, not people that are coming in just to take advantage of, changes that are happening in the West End and pushing all residents out. Like I said, we do advocacy training, and so that's actually focused on permits and zoning, and how those issues have impacted the West End. But we recently brought in the county to hear those concerns. So just connecting residents with the county is our primary efforts right now, and making sure that the county hears community concerns. But like I said, we're very recently moving into the space of advocating at the level like with the county to make sure that those voices are historically heard. We're actually recently now doing oral histories. We're working on getting an oral histories video done of residents that have been living in the West End to ensure that their, perspectives and history and experiences live on for time to come. But yeah, advocating at the county level, bringing residents to the county is our most recent efforts.
Thank you, Daisha. I know we're focusing today on West End, but have you done any collaboration with the new Innovation District referral with Atrium?
No, I don't believe so. But I will say we do this work across North Carolina. So we work with the Merrick-Moore historically Black community in Durham. We work around the concentrated feeding operations, the hog operations down in Eastern North Carolina. And we, just rural communities all across North Carolina. This is our work in Charlotte. I'm located here in Charlotte, so this is where I'm primarily invested in this work, and I will be for time to come. But yeah, we do it all over.
My first question was a little bit more direct. I wanted to know with that rock quarry, where exactly is that located?
Off of Caps Hill. Yeah.
All right. So ultimately, what resource enabler do your organization need to ultimately be successful? What is it that you're just missing or lacking that you need? One, and then two, how closely are you working with the district reps from a Pennsylvania commissioner standpoint, particularly on this?
So I think we need to work closer with district council members. Right now, our primary, connections, like I said, are with the county and the city. And so we need to be more on the legislative level. The mayor, she has come out to some of our events, I think, mostly PR. But actually having her voice or having residents' voices at the table with entities such as that, I think is going to be really important moving forward. As far as resources, more community input, I would say. Although we like our West advocacy training, we had 50 residents attend, and that was wonderful. But I would really love to hear more community voice, not necessarily like you have to be involved and do this and that and the other, because I understand that that's time and that's resources for people, but just wanting to hear more from different perspectives of the issues that are going around. And of course, as a nonprofit, money. More money for monitors, more money for trees, more money. I would also love to see, maintenance trees is expensive. And a lot of people don't really talk about that. And so more money to help residents be able to maintain a lot of these solutions that, help to, I don't mean to say solutions in air quotes, but solutions that help to, mitigate air pollution. Trees are great, but like I said, they're expensive to maintain. And when you're talking about a low income community, a lot of the times the trees just kind of die or they get chopped down because of that issue. So just more resources to actually maintain some of the solutions that are available.
Good morning, I'm Blanche Penn. Congratulations on your baby and your being married. I got a chance to be a part of the several of your workshops and everything, but and I have a monitor in my neighborhood. And I think two of the questions for me, and real quick, they'll be like that transportation. We keep talking about it, but a lot of seniors can't be doing no biking and no walking too much. Okay, so that's a problem. And then also with that Catherine Simmons, will you be able to come up a little bit more after you finish focusing down at the other end?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity for expansion, and that's where we're going to continue to look. And we totally recognize that's why I just meant more perspectives, more, perspectives from different residents of what works for them. But in terms of outside of walking and biking, we were also able to advocate with the county for the electric vehicle buses to be routed mostly through the West End, because that's where most of the air pollution concerns are. And now you have buses that emit no pollution, and so most of those buses need to be routing through the communities that utilize those systems the most. But I'm totally with you.
I'm just wondering about your funding, where you get your money, your resources.
So we received a few grants from the Environmental Protection Agency. So for the charging stations, that was from the EPA. We received money from Charlotte, the city of Charlotte, placemaking grant. We just recently had a Giving Tuesday campaign. All money went to West End initiatives and grants and donations mostly. Yeah, so when we do our advocacy training and our Healthy Air Education series, we pay everyone who comes to those. You're giving your time to be with us and to learn. And so we want to make sure that we're giving back as well. So we do that through donations and through grants. Yeah, CleanAIRE. Yeah. So we actually started, we're celebrating our 20 years this year, actually. Yeah, thank you. So we started in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, and if some of y'all remember, Charlotte used to have some of the worst air quality on the East Coast. And so that is how CleanAIRE started. It was just a group of volunteers that came together to talk about air quality and what they could do, and they started advocating. And then we realized as an organization, as we've grown, that these issues are a lot more complicated than we think, and they impact certain people more than others. So that's when my program was formed, the Environmental Justice Program, and other programs. Our Community Science Program was actually, I forgot to mention this, but it started in the West End. So that's how we started our citizen science monitoring, was in the West End. Residents came to us after some education efforts that we did, and they were like, can we monitor air? And we started looking and found these monitors, and that's when we started that program as well. So it's just kind of evolved over the years, but yeah, I started just a little group of volunteers that wanted to advocate.
Do you do with Duke Energy?
Duke Energy?
Competition with Duke Energy.
Yeah, so that's always a hard line because Duke Energy is a polluting entity. The pole vault that I was showing, the electric vehicle charging station, they did help to create it. And that's our most recent efforts with them for the electric vehicle for equities event that we had. Duke Energy came out to educate about some of the efforts that they're doing to be better. And then with the carbon plan, like I was talking about, Duke Energy is the main, they're the ones that created the plan. And so it's really interesting kind of going back and forth with them. But unfortunately, because they're the largest utility, they're pretty much the only utility in North Carolina and in some other states. We have to go through them for, like, we're trying to start a community solar program. We would have to partner with Duke Energy for electric vehicle charging stations and things of that nature. Sometimes we have to partner with Duke Energy, but we also want to ensure that we're holding them accountable at all stages as well. I believe we've sued them a couple of times. But yeah.
Sections along Ravensford Road. There's one there at the Chase Bank. There's one down at the Ritz Park, and there's one somewhere else. And I think that they're at the water tower. And there's also plans for additional ones trying to get ahead of the electric vehicles when cars start, more people start driving those electric cars.
Yeah, but also bringing benefit back to the community as well. So we have a partnership with Go Station, and they advertise Black owned businesses right near the electric vehicle charging stations on their app. So when you come and charge, they'll offer, like, free coffee or something at the coffee shop, or like a 10% discount at this place to get more people into Black owned businesses. And so we're really grateful for our partnership with Go Station.
Thank you. This is going to be the last question because, as I said from the beginning, we're stopping at 9:30. So I'm going to let Mr. Cleddy.
Thanks for being here. My question is in reference to other groups or organizations that are doing basically what you are doing. Do you know who they are, and can you share with us information about these other organizations that are working on clean air?
Working on clean air? Not many. Like I said at the beginning of the presentation, I think Clean Air is, from my understanding, one of the environmental nonprofits in North Carolina that are working on air issues. There are a lot of environmental organizations here in Charlotte. There's Soul Nation. If y'all have heard of Soul Nation, they focus on environmental issues. There's also Harvesting Humanity. Ms. Ebony Locke is the CEO for that, but she focuses more on ensuring that there's healthy food, access to healthy food, and education around that, and the impacts of climate change on our food systems and things of that nature. So those are the top two that I would recommend here in the Charlotte area. But in terms of air quality, not a lot of groups. There's Clean Airs for Moms, which is a group in North Carolina. That's the only one I can really think of off the top of my head. But here in Mecklenburg County Air Quality does a lot of programs for education, and we work pretty closely with them. Our efforts.
Okay, I do want to recognize former North Carolina Senator Joel Ford is here with us today. So let's just give him a shout out and welcome. Come back. Awesome. We also have Senator Waddell, Joyce Waddell. She's currently North Carolina State Senator, just got re-elected for the fifth time? Yes, so we're happy to have her with us.
I'm Steve Johnson. I apologize for interrupting. Let me explain what you've gone through this morning. First, these microphones are in use because the equipment that runs live streams and the recordings is not operating. That's why we don't hear you unless you're in microphone. So maybe this won't happen again. As for the live stream and the recordings that you put up later, you'll see pieces of today. I apologize for not having the entire session recorded. These things happen with technology. We all know that.
Okay, and in closing, I just wanted to say this because I do live on the west side and I live in one of those red line neighborhoods. I'm very close, just two streets over from I-77 this way and 2 streets over from I-85. So I was telling Ms. McCready that growing up, I never knew that, I never heard the trucks and the pollution and everything going on the highway. And until somebody told me recently, you know, when you all started talking about this and I got involved with Ron, and then I noticed, I said, yeah, you know, I do hear these trucks. And I think it's because I was immune to it, that I didn't hear it. You know, it was there, I heard it, but I was immune to it. So I think that that's one of the issues that you have in those areas, that people are so immune to it, they don't think they have a clean air problem or a noise pollution problem because we just got so used to it. Okay, let's give Ms. Daisha Wall a hand. We do appreciate you and we hope that we want people to watch the recording that Steve is going to put on there because this is an issue that we think is so important, especially on the outside. Okay. And yes.
Who's collecting the money for the breakfast?
Speaking of the breakfast, okay, we need to say it's Mary McClendon's.
Mary had contacted me when my brother passed away in 2020 and said she wanted to provide breakfast for the forum in his honor. Obviously, because of COVID, we really couldn't do it, but I thought this was the perfect time. So this is planning to provide breakfast today. So,